All right, welcome back. Roku shares, they're sliding today. Our parent company, Comcast, unveiling a similar service. However, Roku's stock is still up over 300% this year. And Guggenheim says it's going even higher. They raised their price target to 170 from 119. They keep the buy rating. We've made it our call of the day. Man, this thing has been a bonanza. It's up 355% year to date.
Yeah, and this volatility today is not the first day of this kind of volatility. So, look, it's clearly been a momentum stock. It's overcome fundamentals and valuation. Momentum in the fundamentals has been very, very strong, so it's rewarded. But I don't believe this is the kind of market you go into for overvalued equities that are momentum trades. So let it come back down to earth. I don't think it's down to earth yet, and then you get involved.
Talking about it coming back down to earth, it is just touching the 50-day moving average.
Exactly.
Right. Just touching it now,
right now
with this decline, something it hasn't done in many months. So I think Stephen's right. It is about momentum. It's about momentum chasing, and when does the momentum come back in once again?
We had to figure competition was an issue.
Competition, clearly an issue, yes.
Before today's announcement from our parent, competition has been maybe a central risk.
There has been that thesis to it, but it's been...
No one's paid attention to it, though.
No, it's been impervious up until this point. I would say, though, streaming overall, from a fundamental thesis of investing, I think it's a good one. I think there's a name. I think I mentioned it last week. Akamai. I don't think we talk about it enough. AKAM, $15 billion company. It's been named to several of the stock indexes recently that focus on ESG, and it's a way to play this wave into streaming, and I think it's a little bit less volatile than what you've been experiencing in Roku.
Until they report a quarter. I used to own this stock, and one quarter they do well, next quarter they completely miss it, and then you got to start all over. So I've stayed away from it. Maybe they've got religion now, but it's the same ownership, same founders that are there.
Well, one thing that you can notice, if you look at Disney, which had that enormous move when they announced the streaming service, since then, since it had the run up, it's been basically flat. Yep. And if you look at other participants, Netflix, for example, has not been a good stock recently. Comcast, not great. I think that Roku is now beginning to be seen as another one of the players in a market that is increasingly costly. And they're a participant where there's going to be more pressure, and there's no reason that it should have that same level of acceleration. It's right in with a mix, and that's going to take a while to shake out.
If you're sort of into lower beta growth stocks, it's an interesting list today that UBS has come out with. They have a top 10. Alphabet's on there, and we're not just talking about tech, even though we always associate growth and tech in sort of the same conversation. NextEra Energy, Medtronic, Boston Scientific, Joe, Dollar General, Diamondback Energy, Facebook.
Again, at the top of the show, I mentioned SGX. If we could pull up the chart, SGX is the S&P 500 growth ETX. It's got to focus on quality. It's got to focus on low beta. It's the names we talk about. It's the American Express. It's the Honeywell. It's the Microsoft, Pete. It's those type of names. It's the names you're mentioning here. That peaked in July. I think it would be very difficult for the overall S&P 500 index to continue to march higher after having a FANG peak in 18, a cyclical peak in early 18, and now have a growth peak. So you have to see that growth peak being taken out once again. And I believe if you see rates begin to push lower, again, there's been a tremendous amount of volatility in the 10-year, 145 up to 190, back to 175. That's a lot of volatility. And if you're now going to push yields back lower, growth to me is going to be favored again.